Just like English, German language also has a set of prepositions, but unlike English, you have to be careful with accusative, dative when you are saying or using prepositions in German language. Luckily, it's not that difficult in German language. In German language, you have basically three types or two types of prepositions. Number one and number two. Number one, what comes after them, whether it is nominative, whether it is accusative, whether it is dative or genitive, it's fixed. Okay. For example, the preposition few, whenever you have this, okay, whenever the preposition few is used on its own, then what comes after few would be in accusative case. Now the second variety, we call them as Wechselpräpositionen. Now, Wechselpräpositionen, if you really want to translate this in English, it will sound like changing prepositions. So changing means that what comes after them, whether it is accusative or dative, it depends. So what comes after them can be accusative, can be dative. Now, here is a set of Wechselpräpositionen, if you can uh, read it. So it's auf, an, über, unter, hinter, vor, neben, zwischen. Now, for example, in this particular sentence structure, what comes after them will be in dative case. Now, the one below here, also you have these Wechselpräpositionen, but what comes after them will be accusative. Now, how to identify these two sentence structures, or to be more precise, these two scenarios, is very easy. It's very simple to identify. Again, even in real life, if you in this scenario, if the object is in dative, even though it is supposed to be in accusative, it's not a big deal. Okay, it's a big deal in an exam, they will cut your marks, but in real life people will know what you are trying to say. Okay, unless it is something completely drastic, but normally if you mess up with dative accusative, it's not a big deal. Okay, but let's see if you can we can try to be correct as much as we can. Okay, and I'm sure you will understand this once I'm done explaining all of this. Okay, so before I continue, let us look at some scenarios, right? So I hope my drawing is good enough. So let's say this is a table, right? This is any random table, and this is a drawing of a laptop, right? So here the laptop is beneath the table. Here the laptop is on the surface of the table. Here the laptop is not on the surface, it's just above. So there is some gap between the, again, you're wondering why is this hanging. So just imagine that someone is holding that laptop above the table. Okay, now here let's imagine this is a big box. Okay, and in this big box, if you here the laptop is inside the box. Okay, you can also say it is lying on the floor of the box, but you can also say it is lying inside the box. Okay, over here it is in front of the box, here it is behind the box, here it is next to box. Okay, it's also here, like you can also say it is next to box or next to the table, but you can also say it is between the table and between the box, right? So, and let's look at this example. So let's say this is a wall of your room, and there is this photo. It can be a watch as well, but let's say there is a photo hanging on the wall. Now for this as well, so here in English way, we say it is on, and here to say this, the laptop is on the table. Here also you will say on, right? But this on will be auf in German, and this on will be an in German. Why this is like that, I cannot explain you. Just accept it, okay? But even if you mess up, if you say preposition auf to describe the position of the picture with respect to the wall with auf, it's still fine. People will know what you're saying, but it's just not correct. Okay, now, so I mentioned quite a lot of English prepositions. Let's see if we can find them in German as well, right? So let us first look at the prepositions. So here you have auf. So auf means on, okay? But what kind of on? So it is on a horizontal surface. Okay, so there is this horizontal surface and there is something lying on it. So this thing is lying on this surface. It can be a cup lying on a table, it can be a cup lying on the floor, it can be anything. Okay, it can be your pen lying on the laptop, also like that. Then you have an. So an is also on, but it's depicted, if you really want like a technical explanation, it's something like this. So it is also on, but the surface on which it is lying or it is there is vertical, right? So that is why the example over here, like here I say it is on, right? Because the surface, it is vertical. Okay, if this photo was lying on the, let's say, on the ground, then it would be auf and not an. Then you have über. So über is over. I know quite often, like for example, there are some, like for example, there is this verb sprechen, and you say über etwas Akkusativ sprechen, to talk about something, right? But here it means about. Here über means over. Okay, it is describing a position of a subject with respect to an object, right? Over. And so when is it auf and when is it über? So this is the surface. So this is the surface. And if the cup is just on the like, there is no gap between the cup and the surface, then it will be auf. But if there is gap between the cup, let's say if the cup is not here and the cup is here, let's say if you're holding it up, it will be über. Now again, but this is not a good example. A good example of über will be, let me just go back over here in this drawing. Let's say there is a sofa over here. Okay, let's say there is a sofa over here. Okay, and now if I have to describe the position of this picture with respect to the sofa, you will say über. Okay, so the sofa is über, sorry, the picture is über the sofa. Okay, I'm mixing English and German, but I will give you the complete sentence in German in just a minute. I just wanted to understand when to use which preposition. Okay, so here picture is, so picture with respect to wall, you will have to use the preposition an. Picture with respect to the sofa, you will have to use über. Okay, if you are wondering, like, if you, while I'm talking, you're wondering like, when am I going to describe positions of object with respect to each other in a work life? I agree with you, but there will be scenarios, where you have, for example, if there is a presentation and you are the senior colleague and a junior colleague shows you the presentation, right? And you want to tell them like, it should be between this and that. It should be over this. It should be below this, right? This picture should be next to this table, right? So you will be using this, okay? I'm using a simpler example of describing positions of objects, but this is not the application. Okay, the application will be something else. It is respect to with your work life. And also quite often in every day, someone, I think it happens at least once in 2 days, that someone asks you where something is. Okay, to answer that where something is, you will need this preposition, right? You will need the Wechselpräpositionen, whether it is over something, on something, below something. So unter is below. Okay, below. For example, this laptop over here is below the table, right? Then what is hinter? Hinter is behind. Okay, so if this laptop over here is behind, again, if let's say if you're standing over here, if this is your point of perspective, then like this is front, this is behind. I mean, if you're looking from here, then this will be front, this is behind, right? So hinter is behind. Then for is in front. Okay, for is in front. Then I think neben zwischen, it's obvious, so neben is next to, zwischen is between, right? Quite often when you use zwischen, like you will be saying between this and that, right? So you'll be having two objects over there. With everything else, you just say out, on something, over something, beneath something, behind something, in front of something, next to something. But zwischen, you will have to say like between this and that. Okay, now let us look at the grammar. So let's say if I want to say that laptop, so let's say, I mean, people say sometimes it is there, sometimes it is thus. Let's go with there. Okay, let's go with there. So their laptop, their laptop. Now to describe position, you can use the verb sein. I know it is, so something is somewhere, you can use sein, but you can also use liegen, stehen, hängen. So hängen is obvious, like it will mean hanging. So this, if you have to this exact here, I mean, you can say the picture is on the wall or the picture is hanging on the wall. Okay, so what about stehen and liegen? Liegen is to lie. normally it means to lie. Stehen means to stand. Okay. Now if you mix them up, I mean, if you're not sure which one to use, just go with sein in the beginning. But as you progress, see if you can use, instead of sein, use the correct one, right? So hängen, there is no ambiguity. You know when something is hanging, but lying and uh, standing, right? So for example, let's say the cup will be on the table, right? But if it's let's say the laptop, right? Laptop, normally you will say it is lying on the table. Okay, you can also say stehen, but like even in English we said it is lying on the table. You don't say it is standing on the table, right? If it's a CPU, you will say it is standing on the table. But I hope you get the point.